Hi, I'm Jordan Roth. Thank you for joining us for this week's DALLÄSTHETIC podcast, where we bring you artists from Dallas and talk about art in Dallas. And today we have the distinct pleasure of speaking with Ken Kraft, whose show Ain't Like I Thought is in its last week at Row 2 Art in Dallas at the Cedars location. And welcome, Ken.
Thank you very much. Hey, Jordan.
Hey.
Good afternoon.
Nice to see you.
You too.
So tell me, how is this exhibition kind of rounded out for you?
How's it rounded out? Well, it's the work I've done over the last 2 years, and I think it's rounded out well. I really wanted it to look really great together, and I think it's come together. I'm really proud of the work. I'm very proud of it. There were some things that I knew I was going to do, and I completed, and there were some things that sort of towards the last few months in preparation, I allowed myself a little bit of exploration, a little bit of experimentation. So I think it rounded out well.
Good. Well, we'll have a chance to talk about some of those individual paintings in a bit. Tell me, before we even get into your kind of double life, let's talk about what interested you in painting to begin with.
That goes way back to probably middle school. A teacher just recognized that I had an aptitude for drawing, and I was always drawing pencils, charcoal, and whatnot. And she let me experiment with paint, and it was oil paint, actually. Maybe I did some watercoloring, but she even bypassed acrylic and gave me some oil paints and let me play around with that. And also, key to this is she had me essentially looking at photographs in a National Geographic, beautiful photographs and landscapes. So I would try to I was rendering landscapes with paintbrushes and oil and the various mediums, and I just fell in love with it. And her attention, actually, her care and her enthusiasm just was so rewarding and warm, and it was, and I would do it. I would spend time with it, and then she would light up and just say, "This is great, and it just fueled it more and more and more." So.
And you said that you saw kind of instant magic in
Oh
some
yeah,
of those initial pieces.
that's true. Yeah, especially with trying to capture certain effects of light and atmosphere, even from a really early age in middle school, maybe in high school. I realized that you could, I learned a few basic techniques to achieve that, and. Never really messed with oil in those, didn't paint with acrylic in those days. So yeah.
But those landscapes have stuck with you.
They have, yeah. And to this day, I've gone back and forth with my use of photography, and but it's been essential to me for many years. And at this stage in my life, I'd actually like to get away from that, from the use of photography. But it's still very seductive for me when I see a gorgeous photo. I just want to own it, and I want to see if I can do something with that. It just triggers something in me. So it might be my own photo, it might be a borrowed photo. But.
So most of your paintings, you would say, have an element of photography in the
They have so far,
yeah.
they really have. Yes, yeah. I did some abstract work in college that was actually pretty good. I was loving the combine paintings of Rauschenberg and some of the techniques of Jim Dine, and so I was just sort of sloshing paint around in an abstract manner, reminiscent of those in Jasper John, some of the artists of the mid-century. But I eventually I've always sort of come back to some use of photography for the imagery.
And you went to University of North Texas,
Mm-hmm.
Terrific school. We know a lot of people that have gone to school there.
Yeah, a lot of people.
And you still keep in touch with some of the professors, or one in particular?
Yes, I do. Yeah, a couple of professors I still stay in touch with. Actually, yeah, more than that. Yeah, not as often as I'd like.
Yeah,
but yeah, they were very instrumental. Teal Sale, Vernon Fisher, Vince Falsetta, Claudia Betty, who I believe has passed away, Rob Ertl, wonderful watercolorist, fantastic instructor.
I've heard he was one of the best.
He was one of the best, yeah. So
then after college, you struggled a little bit with how do you keep painting, right?
That's right. That's right. After college in 1990, some ups and downs. I was so yeah. We had a child close to the end of college, and so pursuing a master's degree didn't seem like maybe the smartest thing to do. So one thing led to the other, and a few years after college, I became a firefighter, and I did that thinking, this could be the way to take care of your family, earn a living, and then the time away from the station. The schedule's really good. You work every third day, so you go in 10 days a month, so it's 20 days off to be making art. So that's what's been going on last nearly 24 years.
So that was the double life I was talking about.
That was the double life.
There's
Yeah.
nothing worse than that.
Yeah.
But
when I leave the fire department, I put on my cape and I go paint.
All right. But you get to paint while you're there sometimes too, right?
Yeah, I do. Over the years, you sort of settle in and you develop a routine, and there's a fair amount of downtime we have at the firehouse. It's less than it used to be. It used to be we had more downtime. Now there's a lot going on all the time. But in the evening, on occasion, after dinner, we clean the kitchen up, and it's sort of your time. So at the firehouse, guys might watch a baseball game. We might play ping pong. Somebody might be playing guitar, and I'll paint. And we watch movies. It's another home, so you can do those kind of home things. Of course, at any moment you might get a call, so you got to drop what you're doing and go on the call. And then weekends are the same way. Weekends are a little more laid back. We make the calls, but it's a time to sort of you can entertain some hobbies. You can read, and we cook at the station. So there's definitely some time allowed, and I've always tried to maintain. Set aside some time to draw and paint, and to be honest with you, it's cool how much my fellow firefighters, they've always supported it, and they think it's they think it's interesting. They come in, check on what's going on, and all kinds of jokes are made. They're firefighters. There's a lot of comedy up there,
right?
A lot of humor.
So we would understand, of course, like painting would be therapeutic for you. Of course, it's your life's work as well.
Yes.
Never really asked about this, but what do you think? What is your work as a firefighter? What does that bring to you in the studio? Does it bring any type of tenacity, or is there anything that kind of comes home with you?
I haven't thought about this in a long time, but yes, I think that. I definitely try to, this is going to sound so, I'm not sure I'm going to like the way this sounds, but I think it has made me try to make paintings that are, for lack of a better word, pretty. I love beautiful imagery, beautiful paintings. So there's a lot of art I admire that's really daring and wild and bold and maybe a little bit freaky. And I think it's so cool. For whatever reason, I want to make things that are beautiful. How do you define that word? That's a difficult thing to describe. But and I've tried really hard to not tap into the fact that I'm a firefighter and put that in my artwork.
Right.
And I'll tell you why. There's a lot of all across the nation. There's firefighter art, and most of it's frankly not very good. It's a little bit cheesy and too sentimental for me. So I have purposely just I love the job. It's being at the firehouse is still good, but I don't really put it into the paintings, except for one. There's a painting in this show that probably does have some of that in there. Yeah. And then again, perhaps here lately, elements of dread, elements of mortality. Those things, it might just be my age as well, being a 51-year-old guy, but I try to do it with a wink and a smile to some extent. But yeah, there's definitely an element of the acknowledgement of death, and that probably has something to do with the job. You see a lot of bad things. Not every shift. Most of the time it's bread and butter stuff. Most of the time you're there and things go well. You make something better for somebody. But yeah, for sure, many times we see some pretty horrible things. And
Would you say that a lot of the camaraderie that you see in your paintings may stem from?
oh, no doubt, no doubt. Some of that, you wouldn't believe the wit I hear at work. Some of the funniest things I've ever heard, and I don't think I've ever entirely stolen word for word a line of jokes or dialogue, but it definitely informs some of the exchanges. Some of the I have a couple of paintings where there's some insults thrown around amongst the characters or jabs at the other's expense, and that's pure Firehouse stuff. I mean, we'll say fairly horrible things to each other it's not intended to be taken seriously. It's just guys having fun, and women too. I'm happy to say we've been hiring a handful of women, and they're great. They can deliver the stuff too. They can really deliver some good jabs, and it's good. Yeah.
So your paintings are quite unique in that you've got kind of two different ideas, or there's a story and there's a scene in all of your works, and they're not always related.
To me, they are. They may not seem it at first, but to me, they are related. There's either an intellectual connection or there's an emotional connection. The feeling of the landscape. It could be an actual backdrop for what the characters are experiencing. So it's either it's intellectually or emotionally connected. They're really never random to me. So and sometimes they're very connected.
Yeah. You told me once that you introduced comic work into your paintings when you just saw no reason to paint only landscapes. Can you elaborate on that?
This is really true. Yeah. The cartoons really began. Well, I love comics and cartooning, and my love and admiration for it kind of runs equal step to my love of painting. And so you go to a painting exhibit or you buy a graphic novel, and I just see them all as very meaningful. They're I can't really give more weight to one over the other. And so I've dabbled in cartooning, and it was on paper the way you're supposed to do it, and I was never very satisfied. I just couldn't really make it work. So I took it to the canvas, because the canvas can take anything. You can mess up, you can draw it incorrectly, if you screw up, you can sand it down a little bit and start over. So the canvas gives me just ultimate freedom to make a few horrible cartoons, and then keep going till you get it right. Paper doesn't allow for that, and so I think I tend to do things in a backwards manner, putting them on canvas, because that's my comfort zone. I can do this. If I actually tried cartooning, I researched it and tried to make them the way cartoonists make them, with those steps and those procedures, and I fumbled all over the place. I couldn't do it. But there's something about taking it to canvas. It seems like I can do anything on a canvas, and I still feel that way. But yes, I felt like, to answer your question, to do an ocean scene or to do a landscape scene, I felt like that's a little bit, for me, it just didn't satisfy a certain need in me. I love storytelling. I like narrative. And I can't, there's certain emotions and certain feelings and certain fears and certain interests in science and nature and philosophy that I don't know how to, I'm maybe not as good enough writer to write about those subjects, and I don't have the command to write about those things, but I can write about it a little bit in a painting, and I can do something else with it, add a layer of imagery with mountains or a spooky moon at night. I can get a mood going and then have a story told with these characters, and it satisfies the literary that I probably get more inspiration out of books that I've read, and even music that I've listened to, perhaps as much or more than art that I've seen. So it just satisfies everything I want to do. I can do that with this format, and it's very exciting.
Seems kind of like life at times. Like you think of like a late summer night or something, and you've got all this stuff that you've got on your mind.
Yeah.
You can't really put it into words, and then bird flies by, or there's a chirping sound, or you see something in the moon, and there it goes.
That's beautifully put, and that's it. That right there can be the makings of a painting. You just might have some characters that just acknowledge that scene as you described it, and you can add another layer. They're seeing this, but they're thinking this. Sorry. So that's what excites me. And you're reading a book, and the character is in a place, and then they have their internal ongoings happening, and then add imagery to that via paint. There's a lot of freedom there, and I enjoy that freedom very much.
And there's a little bit of structure. You go back to the same characters.
I do
again and again.
Yes. Flirty Lamort. He's who I came up with, and he originated at the right soon after my wife's diagnoses with breast cancer in 2014. She's doing great now. She survived it, and she's super healthy. So happy story there. But I went through a real genuine tailspin of depression and fear, and when I heard the words cancer, I thought it was a very terrible time. And I was doing some other type of art, and I just immediately started drawing Flirty Lamort as an escape. And those initial paintings had to deal with him facing death. There's a painting there's a tornado in the painting, and so I was dealing with really gloomy, depressing thoughts and fears, more like fears. It was more like an absolute fear that I might lose my wife due to over cancer. So that was something I began doing these characters. It just sprung right up, it just exploded right there, and people responded to them in a really positive way, and they were a wonderful escape for me to go to. And I went and did it all through. I was home a lot. I was missing a lot of work, taking days off. So I was tending to her, taking her to the hospital for her treatments, and then just painting these characters. And it was a scary, frightening time, but also a really good time for art.
And so then Flirty's sidekick is Chief Dan.
Yeah. His name is Dan Lee, who is a name that's inspired by a very close friend of mine. You calling Native American chief is blatantly could be taken very racist if it's in this day and age. Similar to what you might hear in the firehouse, we might call each other certain names. Well, Flirty Lamort calls him chief, but he would be upset if anybody else were to do that, the way familiar friends can say things. But yeah, his name is Dan Lee, but yeah, he just calls him chief.
That reminds me of a painting that you did a few years ago, where Flirty found himself in a fight.
Yes.
For defending Chief.
Yes, I was trying to deal with the very real dilemma of a middle-aged white guy doing imagery of a Native American character in traditional sort of Native American garb with the headdress and whatnot. And I was essentially having an inner struggle with what am I doing here? Can I do this? Is this allowed? And so I addressed it in the painting itself, where I thought I would do a really epically beautiful Western landscape sunset, which can also be seen as somewhat cheesy. A Western sunset is a little bit cheesy, and I recognize that it's somewhat cliched, but the whole story behind the painting was Flirty getting upset because someone said that his image, the image of Dan Lee himself, or Chief, the image of Chief himself was an offensive image. And so he starts a fight, and it's I'm not sure I really worked out my issues with that painting, but I'm at least trying to address it. And so I also saw the landscape itself as being potentially offensive. Not in a only to an art, maybe a real serious art critic, because it's a Western. You're doing this this sunset. It's oh my God, can you even do that anymore? It's very cliched. Well, I did it. I did this radiant, crazy sunset that to some might be offensive. The image of a Native American drawn this way by a white guy could seem offensive, but so there's a fight ensues, and it's really, honestly, it's probably just me fighting with myself in the painting, and nothing is really resolved there, but I do acknowledge that it is an issue. And there's been a lot of talk in recent years about appropriation of culture and whatnot. Is that allowed? And I know where I land on it. I feel like we're all truly related, and so I don't feel like I should be forbidden from stepping outside of my own culture if I want to draw someone or paint someone. I recognize that there are pitfalls and dangers there. Say a new character is an African American woman, and I want to get out of my own 51-year-old white guy brain and explore another way of being. So I'm drawing this woman and painting her, and I want to do that really well. I take it really seriously. I don't take it lightly at all, but it allows for exploration. It allows for understanding. It hopefully you might maybe are reading some things and taking in some information that you some research for those characters, which I do. It's very rewarding, and but I don't think that it should be forbidden, and I don't forbid myself to explore what people might call cultural appropriation. But I think there's it can be done well and it can be done poorly, and I'm trying really hard to do it well.
Well, and we're all part of a bigger culture.
We're all. Yeah, I truly think that. Yeah, and I'm a science guy, so I mean we truly are all we are one people. That's the bottom line for me.
So let's talk about some of the paintings in this show.
Okay.
I don't know if they're queued up. So this one we'll start with Haunted Heart. You had an interesting story for us when we were walking through the other day.
Yeah.
About how
I can briefly say that it's a little bit autobiographical. That painting. I was seeing a woman many years ago who we had a on again, off again romance for some time, but she did in fact live by the airport, and she liked that she was in the mid cities, and she stated that it gives her the opportunity to get out of town. She needs to get away, and she can do that. And she made it known that that's why she was there. If there's something that is eating at her, she might have another boyfriend in New York City or something. And she mentioned that. She said, I just need to get away. So that's what that's about, Haunted Heart. And so the character's probably a little bit concerned about that or haunted by that element of the relationship, having the hots for somebody who is looking for a way out at any given time,
And so, he's just trying to say, what does he say?
I don't care she lives by the airport, I love her. So it's almost like he's explaining this situation to another person, and also living by airports can sometimes be a sort of a shady neighborhood. So I was attempting to do sort of a noirish painting, and that's what that was about. And then the owl is just a symbol of flight, spooky and mysterious and seldom seen.
And then there's that painting that is kind of about your being a firefighter and an
oh, sure. Surrounded, yeah. Yeah, that one shows a pretty serious conflagration, and then Fleur de la Mort, who he's in a gallery setting and is having something of a breakdown, some kind of a seizure of sorts, and that was probably the most autobiographical one, I would say. It's bridging the two worlds of firefighting and art, and it's about social anxiety, where everyone can have that from time to time. I actually don't have that degree of social anxiety in a gallery, but it's there to
Certainly know
some.
people that do.
Yeah, and I think maybe after all these years, I thought, I never really combined these two elements of my life, being a firefighter and being an artist. So it felt like it was high time to do that, to go ahead and I gave myself permission to do that.
When you've seen fire before, and it certainly is a dramatic, beautiful painting.
Oh, thanks.
And then moving forward to the next two chronologically that you did, they're kind of a pair,
Right.
more or less.
Yeah, those are a pair. Yeah, those two, I don't usually, put things together like that, but it was just a real simple little pairing of talking about stars at night. It's just a little gentle philosophical meandering about life and death, and the idea of a shooting star or meteorite falling from the sky while a little girl is pulling up a flower. I just thought that was a nice little poetic touch. And then in the painting that we're looking at now, Upon Warm Winds Born, again, it's a connection of flowers and stars and Native American creation mythology, and just trying to explore, history and science. And that one even has a little bit of a dopey joke in it that I'm kind of proud of.
Why don't you tell it to us?
Oh, sure. Well, the Menominee tribe was a tribe of North American Indians from the Great Lakes region. And so for the purposes of the painting, Fleur de la Morte, can be dopey from time to time, he hears Menominee, hears Mean-O-Meanie. That's straight out of the Firehouse. I mean, I don't think that actually happened, but it's the kind of thing that I can't imagine someone hearing and twisting and making a joke out of. Mean-O-Meanie. And that's what he does there. So, but he immediately feels somewhat embarrassed by it, because he's responding to his friend Chief's comment about the origins of flowers, or based on certain Indian mythologies, and so I I do enjoy combining that kind of lowbrow dopiness with what I'm trying to do is make a really lovely painting of a galaxy, So I do enjoy that, and that was my attempt there, was to make a decent sort of slapstick comic combined with a really good-looking painting.
Yeah.
And I want it to all work together. So
We don't have an example of this one here, but I just can never get too much of it. You did a painting a few years ago of an aurora borealis.
Right.
And
Joker's Wild.
Joker's Wild. And
It's a terrible joke.
Yeah, but how does it end?
It ends with a Muppets reference,
Yeah.
with a play on the old Muppets song, where they go, Hamanama. No, that's not it.
Phenomena.
Phenomena. Thank you. And it ends with talking about the aurora borealis as magnetic fields and storms, but phenomena. It's naturally occurring phenomena, and it ends. So it's the. In the old comics that I love, where a character, when they've been duped or when they've been the butt of a joke, their feet may fly up, right? Their feet fly up, and that's called the pratfall. So that was there. It's I'm proud of my dopey jokes. I like them quite a bit, and it's fun. Can a good-looking painting also be funny? And I try. I think that it can be, and I try to make them like that. The work that's up now at the gallery, the 20 or so works, probably trying to tone down the humor. Mm-hmm. I wasn't going for as many laughs this time, or dopiness. I was, because I don't feel that. I think a lot of us don't feel that these days. Yeah. It's important to laugh, and there are some comedic elements to the paintings, but the tone has shifted a little bit into something different, a little bit of a sadness and a little bit of a worry and concern,
and kind of insight into character, and I feel.
Thank you. That's intentional. Yeah, more into the characters. Just a little, slightly more serious tone, I suppose. Yeah.
So I believe now we've got some images queued up of some of the sketches. And if you could tell me, you usually start with a sketch, right?
Yes, yeah, lots and lots of sketches. And eventually I might make a finished sketch, a finished drawing or watercolor. That's the final step, before I take it to a canvas.
Do you end up with a lot of sketches that you don't use?
Bunch, a
Really?
ton. Yeah, I use a lot of real light vine charcoal. It's super soft, and I'll just do drawing after drawing, and trying to get it all right. Yeah.
So then the title of the show, Ain't Like I Thought. Where did that come from?
That came from I don't usually get just a pop of an idea where it just pops in there and there it is. But that was the title of a small drawing a couple of years ago, where my character Fleur de l'Amour is falling from a height, an impossibly high height, and I wanted him to be falling essentially so high that this is not going to end well. He's probably going to die whenever he lands, and so so it's a serious situation he's in. But ain't like I thought. That thought balloon in his head. It was fun because there's at least a couple of ways to take that there. That might have been the thing he said as he's falling over, whatever it is he's falling over. I didn't see this coming. I didn't think my way through this. And if he's coming off of a cliff or a balloon or whatever. And then also maybe perhaps the experience itself of falling and perhaps facing your mortality any given moment. This is not what you thought it would be like. Maybe this is not what you thought your life would be like.
Right.
And then nowadays we say it all the time. I didn't think this is not like I thought it would be. So. But it's also, so it's just a nice little concise phrase. And it was kind of a last minute decision to title the show that. So, but I think it's a good title. It's an apt title.
I think it works. We'll move forward to, I had an image of critical response ready, but we'll talk about that painting in a minute.
Sure.
Before we see Flirty actually falling to his death in the painting, or we assume, there's a conversation
He always comes back.
Yeah.
That's the beauty about comics. You can kill him and then bring him right back.
He's like Kenny from South Park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although I don't think I've ever actually killed them in a painting, but anyway, it looks like it probably is going
They
to
maybe die.
Yeah, they maybe die.
They maybe die. And then in Walking Before a Beautiful Sunset, they're talking about death.
Sorry, my watch.
In one of these paintings.
Oh, which one is that? Beautiful, geez.
It's orange and red. Are they?
Oh,
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah.
Yes. With that one right there, yeah. That one, yes. That has an odd title, but it's escaping me right now what the title is. Yeah, that piece there was, that's all done in acrylic, just as a footnote, as an aside. But yeah, so this one I was revisiting Dante's Inferno somewhat, and the idea of these. I'll make this brief, but the idea of traveling through hell, and with the two people in Dante's Inferno it's Dante himself and then the poet Virgil. So they're seeing all this suffering. Well, in my painting, I decided, this in a few exchanges of dialogue, these two, at least for Chief, who tends to be smarter, more. He's just a little more. He has a little more going on upstairs than Flirty. Flirty kind of becomes his own personal hell, just over the misunderstanding. And I think I was trying to tap into that a little bit. We can be each other's hell, not you and me, of course, but just so as companions in life, as friends or whatever. There's just due to a misunderstanding, a misheard word. And just that aggravation, that confusion, and so that was the impetus for that one there. So, and then a good friend of mine, when I showed him that painting, I asked him what he thought about it, and he said, "I like it a lot." He said, "It seems to me that Chief's got a little more anxiety, a little more stress, and Flirty enjoys life a little bit more." I said, "That's pretty good. That's a pretty good take on it." Yeah, he's perhaps taking things a little too seriously. But I do like the little poem he says at the very end there. He just, on the fly, in response to Flaherty's complete misunderstanding of what he said, I wrote a nice little short original poem. Would thyself give up, of my bed make a pyre, to at last be finished of these circles of fire. Again, circles of fire, referencing the circles of hell in Dante's Inferno.
That is quite poetic.
I was proud of it. So the painting's fairly simple. There's not compared to my other work. It's got a real clean, simple format. But I spent a fair amount of time, trying to perfect that little on the fly poem. He just seems to come up with while they're walking in this place.
You ever seen Salvador Dali's series of 99 woodblocks from Dante's Inferno?
Oh,
Quite
sure.
fascinating.
Yeah, I'm probably not all 99. Is there that many of them?
There are 99. Actually, there are 100. There are 34 purgatories, I believe.
Oh, wow. I'm sure I have. But I've seen probably some aspect of it, but I can't say that I've seen them all. I have to look that up.
For those in Dallas, you can see that at the SMU library. They've got the whole set there.
And we know we got an inn there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we know someone that might show us around. Cool. All right.
So we digressed a little bit. We talked a little bit about the painting, or at least Flaherty falling to his death. But again, you revisit that again in A Long Lost Mind.
Yes.
And gorgeous painting, though.
Well, thank you.
And here's one.
People seem to like that
one of the first from this series where it's more about the landscape.
Yes, I attempted this particular landscape in a smaller format. I think that one's 36 inches tall, so it's a good medium-sized painting. But there's so much going on in that image. It was hard to compact that. And I thought, well, I'm going to go and just stretch it out across the canvas. And I also was getting a little bit tired of my own format of having things separated, images divided. There's usually a dividing line between, say, a painted image and a cartoon. So I wanted to layer things up a little bit more. So I didn't really, when I painted the landscape, I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to put on top of it. I thought, you'll figure it out along the way. So I did the landscape, and then I lived with it for a few weeks before I figured out that I could use one of my own drawings that was never really intended for that painting, the image of Flaherty falling, and I thought that would work. And so then you're just playing in the studio, you're trying things out, and I tried several other things out, but that worked out really well. And it suited it because in the original small, simple drawing, he was falling in a desert. I referenced a Da Vinci drawing of a landscape, of a view across a canyon. And the really simple drawing that I did, the faraway distant mountains, that sort of perspective was borrowed from Da Vinci landscape, one of his red charcoal drawings of a valley, great distance in this valley. So it was kind of, I didn't feel like I was cheating. I felt like this all goes together before I even knew it. It's him falling superimposed on top of there it is. There's the mountains in the distance. That's borrowed from Da Vinci. And then I laid him on top of my oil,
and
much,
so
much larger.
counterintuitive to do that with a painting that everybody walks in and loves.
Well, that one seems to be one that people, I've had a lot of good responses on that one. Yeah.
We'll talk about critical response for a minute.
Sure.
It's so funny that so this is a painting of this gorgeous massive wave.
Yes.
And
a wave that is almost, it looks like a mountain.
Yeah.
Towers over everything.
And then at the bottom you've got a scene of Flaherty painting, and maybe he's painting that wave.
Yeah. It's not really given what the image is. You see the back of a canvas that he's working on. Mm-hmm.
And then Chief is sort of kind of criticizing him.
They're both in ridiculous costumes, I would say, where they're usually done in this sort of style of early 20th century, late 19th century sort of American Western wear. He's dressed like a Frenchman, cliched, the way someone might think If you go to Google and type French, put in French painter,
Yeah.
it's what's going to pop up, all these cliched images of
sure.
a beret and a striped shirt. So he's in that costume. Chief is in a costume that looks like maybe a snooty art critic, in a nice tweed suit. But so yes.
And immediately I'm thinking critical response. It made perfect sense to me. And then to find out that that's a very common term in firemen.
Sure. It was a fun way. Titles are really fun. Sometimes they can befuddle me, but that was I thought a really good title. There's nothing really that critical about making paintings. You're just doing this thing and people like them, and it's a wonderful thing. A critical response, you think in terms of a 911 call, yeah. When the tone goes off, we call it a tone, and you go on the call. You're making a critical response, especially if it's a critical call. If someone's in a car wreck, or someone's about to give birth, or someone's having a heart attack, or there's a house fire. So it was a fun way to again take a couple of words and give them a little more meaning.
Puts things in perspective a little bit.
Yeah, perhaps a little bit. And then the wave evokes sort of a dread, or there's some element of danger and excitement there with the wave towering and looming, and then obviously critical response. That's sort of that's the exchange between the two characters. They're talking about art. So it's about a lot of that's the one piece that's art about making art. You know? And it was really fun to do.
The drawing at the bottom is just so fantastic.
I'm proud of that painting because I feel like I know my way around the paint studio as far as painting, but I'm no cartoonist. I'm trying to get better all the time, and I feel like that's the one where the cartooning is finally looking the way it ought to look. I feel like, wow, that looks like a real cartoon, and so that one worked for me really well.
So then kind of for the finale in the show, you leave us with what I think is a real cliffhanger. I mean, truly. Mm-hmm. And the biggest and like most stunning painting in the show.
Oh, thank you so much.
And it's the night
and the
of
wettest.
The
it was delivered wet.
Was it? Yeah, that happens a lot, though.
I barely finished it for the show.
And it's the Night of the Cowards.
Night of the Cowards. Mm-hmm.
What all do we see there?
A lot going on with that one. I started with, again, having discovered a photo that I just really loved, the image of these many, many deer at night. And I just sort of held on to it, thinking, I file things away and thinking that's the kind of thing I could use. I just love it. And then the drawing developed. It just seemed right to those deer with all those white, beautiful white spots. Or it's a starry field. It's the cosmos at night. Cosmos, period. And and I just developed a story of. Again, I like to put the characters in some peril, some danger from time to time. And when I came up with that idea, I was really concerned for somebody in my life, very personal life. I was concerned about are they going to have a place to live, and just worried about their day-to-day. Literally, or do they have a home? Do they have a roof over their head? And I it's something. It's a deep fear of mine, having no place to call home. So I wanted to put Flirty out in nature, exposed, vulnerable, and then I wanted to have. Originally, it was going to be this heroic scene where, and I backed away from that. I wanted to keep it a little more vague, a little more ambiguous, and then. But and I also wanted to make it something of an adventure story. Mm-hmm. I haven't done that yet with the comics. Thinking about looking at old Tarzan comics and Doc Savage, that kind of stuff. I really hadn't done an adventure type story where there's some kind of action going on. So I thought I would play around with that. But it's about vulnerability, deer being a prey animal, always on the move. One could argue they don't really have a home. They're just shifting around, migrating. So I wanted to explore themes of loneliness and with the central character of Flirty Lamort being perhaps in danger. And then the figure in the foreground, the moon-dappled figure, is Dan Lee, Chief Dan Lee, and he's coming upon the scene, and and we're seeing what maybe something's just about to happen. He's going to intervene perhaps while these three ominous figures are there. They're armed, and they seem like bad guys, and maybe hopefully he'll intervene, but we're not really certain. But another thing, I meant to tell you this earlier about that painting. Something that really marked me many, many years ago was Cormac McCarthy's Border Trilogy, and it's an incredible series of books that are all tied together. And at the very end of the book, we have followed this character named Billy Parham for many years through adventures and excitement and romance and tremendous tragedy. And Cormac McCarthy does an amazing thing at the very end of the book. He leaps into our own future. This is before he wrote The Road. So he leaps into the unknown future and puts that character, I think at the time, several years into our future. I think it was probably 1999 or 2000, but he's writing about it in 2003. That character is now on the highway under a bridge, and he's lost everything. There's nothing left. Everybody he knows is gone. He just has the road. He's a survivor, but he's got nothing left. And that just devastated. It's a devastating story. And if you haven't read it, I apologize for ruining it for you. But so that character, I think someone kind of drives up upon him and checks on him, and he maybe hitches a ride a little way. But he's got all he has left are his memories and nature, and it's a really heavy story. And in that painting, Night of the Cowards, I sort of saw Fleur de la Mort. I think I was thinking about that character somewhat, of just in the elements on your own with nothing but your memories and your.
Well, and of course you know, it's very rare that you encounter a painting that, you know, stirs up kind of a little bit of anxiety, and you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if Chief is going to meet his match with three armed men, you know, down there. It's a real cliffhanger of a painting, and
good.
It makes you wonder what's next. Do you anticipate continuing where that leaves off, or do you just not know?
Right now, I don't have anything on that particular subject. So I don't know. It's unknown. Right now, I want to focus on the character of Rebbe, the African American woman, a little bit. But it's too new. That painting was the Night of the Cowards was finished so recently, and there's a lot of thought in that one. So I don't know if I'll pick up there or not. I haven't done that yet, really. Paintings, they tend to just sort of exist on their own. So I don't know. We'll see.
Well, if
it's an interesting idea.
If everyone's still alive, then we know it. we know a little something.
Yeah.
Well, it's, you know, the show is it gives more and more every time you see it, and we're fortunate it's up for a little while longer. The show's been held over through Saturday the 21st, and anyone that's listening or watching this is welcome to visit the gallery, which is open through Saturday, 12 to 5, and it's right there in the Cedars.